Today I will conduct an interview with Rustam Atadjanov, who is a professor at the KIMEP University School of Law. Professor, I would like to ask you a couple of questions. And the first question, I know that you have worked as a legal advisor for the International Committee of the Red Cross. Could you tell us about your experience and did you like the work on this committee?
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Dana, for organizing this interview. I'm happy to share my thoughts and responses with you and in general with our students. And thanks for this pretty much interesting question. Yes, I worked for 7 years at the International Committee of the Red Cross, the regional delegation of the ICRC in Central Asia, in Tashkent, covering 5 Central Asian countries. And well, I started as a program officer, and then I moved to a program responsible position, the position of program responsible, dealing with issues related to domestic or national implementation of international humanitarian law, also at times dealing with academic circles. And later, during the last part of my time with the ICRC, I worked as a legal advisor responsible for dealing with international humanitarian law, international criminal law, human rights law, domestic criminal law, and public international law in general. Indeed, to put the question the way that you formulated it, it sounds very, it sounds like a very simple question. Did you like your work with the ICRC? It's both simple and difficult to respond. To say I liked it would be the understatement. My work with it has given me a lot, to be honest, a lot. I learned many things during my time of work with the regional delegation. I obtained different types of experience: academic, practical, professional, communicative, administrative, and so on and so forth. I learned how to work with different types of projects and programs. I learned how to interact during my work with the ICRC with different types of audiences: students, instructors, teachers, professors, so academicians in general, state representatives, our partners in the International Red Cross and Red Crescent movement, people from the so-called national societies of the Red Cross and Red Crescent. But very importantly, I also learned about the basics of humanitarian action and how the ICRC, Red Cross, implements its so-called fundamental humanitarian principles, starting with the principle of humanity. This experience was, of course, at times challenging, but most of the time I enjoyed working there. During my time with the ICRC, I also learned French, which is one of the 2 working languages of the ICRC, the first one being English. It indeed gave me a lot of international, regional, and domestic experience. For that, I'm thankful to this organization for the time that I spent there. I hope I answered your first question.
Okay, thank you. And the second question, many students know that you are a professor at the KIMEP University School of Law, and what else are you interested in besides jurisprudence? The goal of this question is to know you as a personality rather than as professional.
Well, you know, there are so many things that I'm interested. I'm a very curious person. Every day I try to learn something new, something unexplored. Besides working with law, studying it, researching it, explaining it, and describing it, I have several hobbies, several personal interests, starting with the fact that I consider myself as a paleontological enthusiast. I've never had a formal education in the sphere of paleontology or geology. I read mostly, I collect articles on paleontology, and I also have a small, very small domestic collection of certain fossils such as ammonites and trilobites from around 200 million years ago, which my daughter and I found in Tajikistan's mountains while we were there. And yeah, we are pretty much proud of this small collection. Of course, I do not dig along the roads and steps and mountains as professional paleontologists do when they're collecting fossils. But I have been pretty much fascinated by this field since my childhood. So, and I also collect books on dealing with popular science, including in the sphere of paleontology. Another hobby of mine is collecting books in general. I love reading, and I read a lot. Every day I try to find some time dedicated completely to reading. And the books that I collect, they are on various topics, starting from philosophy, law for obvious reasons, politics and political science, psychology, science fiction, definitely, classics, and so on and so forth. It's very difficult to concretely say which one of these fields is the most favorite for me. All of them, each one of them has its own particular appealing and very interesting aspects, which I find for myself fascinating. Okay, so my small collection of books is also steadily growing. And I know how to play guitar. I've played it, but I believe I haven't played for years now, but I used to play in the past. So I enjoy listening to music, definitely. Rock, for example, retro music, old music, and classics, and musicals, of course. So I watch movies. I love watching reflection-provoking movies that are aimed at describing and revealing, reflecting upon certain serious issues, humanitarian topics, for example, human rights issues, and dramas, and history, and so on and so forth. So there are other things as well, but I don't think we have enough time to talk about all of them. But these are basically, yeah, a big part of my hobbies that I just described to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes. The third question, you said that you love to read the books. Could you give some advice to young lawyers which books they should read to increase their knowledge in the sphere of law?
Indeed, recommending books. I try to recommend different types of works, texts, books, and pieces for my students during my courses. But in general, I would recommend books, both fiction, representing fiction books, and also legal and political, more specific legal and political literature. In the first category, I would highlight such aspiring or inspiring, rather inspiring works such as To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, The Trial by Franz Kafka, for example, and of course, obviously, George Orwell's famous 1984 books, like some classical books such as Resurrection by Leo Tolstoy. What else? The Devil's Advocate, and of course, Victor Hugo's famous Les Miserables. Among those which are relevant for international or international criminal law, the areas that I, among others, specialize in, it would be another famous work written by Professor Philip Sands called East-West Street on the origins of genocide and crimes against humanity. And there are many more. When we talk about fiction, many more books that are dealing with issues such as justice, law, morality, and social justice, and so on and so forth. As for more specific, more academic, and also legal and political literature, I would suggest reading certain classical legal texts, which is imperative for any lawyer to be aware of and to be able to enjoy, but also to reflect upon, such as, of course, goes without saying, Pure Theory of Law by Hans Kelsen, definitely. Books written by philosophers such as Republic by Plato, or Towards Perpetual Peace by Kant, by Immanuel Kant. The Concept of Law, obviously, by H.L.A. Hart. There are many more. There are so many books. Natural Law, Natural Rights by a famous legal theorist, John Finnis, for example, and many other things. Not everything comes to mind right now, but definitely these are only several among the key texts that any deserving lawyer or a lawyer who is aiming at becoming professional and respected must definitely read, go through, analyze, work on, and reflect. And of course, this is not an exhaustive list. The list can go on and on. I'm just telling you the ones that first pop up in my mind. So this would be a very small list of recommended books that I could tell you.
Thanks for sharing with interesting books. And the last question for today, what advice would you give to young lawyers? It can be motivational advice to the future.
Oh. Okay, what recommendations I could give to future aspiring lawyers? It's an interesting question, because every time you ask something like that from lawyers, there will be subjective answers, right? Everyone has their own perspectives, and it's not easy to single out each and every important advice. A lawyer with a huge practical experience will tell you one thing. A person who is involved in dealing with academic issues and teaching will tell you some other things. But I will try to give you several recommendations and advices based on my own personal experience. Well, first of all, I would advise to never take the law for granted. Never take the law as a given. The law is a dynamic phenomenon, and it changes. Its practice changes every day, and it must respond to realities of our life, definitely. And that means something that is written today will not necessarily be the same thing which is figuring today or the day after tomorrow. So you have to be ready for that. Okay, and law can be very, very complicated, definitely. So these things must be always kept in mind when you're dealing with such sometimes underestimated fields such as law. Okay, so of course you have to be confident about what exactly you like about the law. Of course, you have to know why you chose this particular field. Why you want to specialize in it. Aspects of it you have to constantly keep asking yourself relevant questions about the law, definitely. Another advice would be to be curious. Be curious. Always try to learn something new. That's what I personally try to do every day. Try to read more, try to obtain information from different sources, okay? Try to make sure that every day that passes by is not going in vain and is not buried only in work or in technical or administrative things. Try to gain certain new insights and knowledge about law and about things other than legal sphere. Okay, this is really important for self-development. Okay, and as I already said, read. I advise to each and any student of mine to read. I cannot stress it enough. Lawyers, that's what lawyers do all the time. They not only interpret the law, they always read about it. In order to apply the law properly, first you have to read about it, and you have to read it. You have to read norms, you have to read commentaries on those norms, you have to be able to apply legal acts, documentation, books, texts, pieces, and so on, and works, and so on and so forth. And reading is key. It will help you hone your practical legal skills. It will help you hone your analytical and critical skills. So this is very important, as I believe. And I mentioned the word critical. This is also a key point. In fact, you have to be critical about new information. Don't take for granted don't take for granted new ideas that come to you, that you discover. Okay, always try to look at one and the same thing from different perspectives. Okay, from different angles. Often in law there are not one and the same all-solving response or answer. Okay, there are several perspectives, and it's important to be aware of that. Okay, very often people try to find or expect from law to provide to them some clear and simple and unequivocal answers. But life is more complicated than that, and practice is more complicated than that. So that must be always kept in mind. Be critical. Okay, analyze, criticize, think about what you have been told. Before believing something, you have to analyze it. Okay, so the last couple of advices would be prioritize. Always prioritize, and that's important. You have to take into account the time management. Lawyers today, they are very busy people. Okay, and that means that you have to learn how to schedule your day in a way that will help you to achieve the best, the most results with the least amount of energy and time and resources spent. Okay, so this will give you important opportunities in life to achieve more than initially you would expect. So time management skills and prioritizing is also very important. Every day in the morning when you wake up, think about planning of your day, and in the evening when you go to sleep, think about what you have achieved. I know that this kind of advices they sound pretty much simple and banal, but that's something that I try to do myself, and it works. It definitely works. So yes, time management is important. When my students tell me that they try to cope with assignments most of the time right before the deadline or one day before the deadline, I always tell them this is not a good time management. Work on your assignments sometime in advance before the deadline. Give it a time and prioritize, but do not wait until the last hours that are remaining for the deadline of a, for example, take-home assignment. So time management and clear prioritization will give you a lot of will help you a lot in your life and in your career. That's pretty much about it that I could advise in response to your question.